The gunshot echoed through the streets of Opal, Wyoming, and Martha Newman knew she had mere seconds before they found her father's body in the church. She ran through the back door of the parsonage, her long dark hair streaming behind her, heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. The September night in 1879 was cool, and her thin cotton dress offered little protection against the wind that swept down from the mountains. Behind her, she could hear men shouting, their voices filled with rage and bloodlust. Her father had refused to lie for them, refused to say that the stolen cattle they had hidden belonged to someone else. Reverend Nehemiah Newman had been an honest man until his dying breath, and now Martha was paying the price for his integrity. She stumbled through the darkened streets, staying in the shadows, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The town of Opal was small, barely 200 souls, and everyone knew everyone else's business. There would be nowhere to hide inside the town limits. The Garrett brothers controlled everything here, from the saloon to the general store, and they had just murdered her father to keep their secrets safe. She was a witness who could bring the law down on them, and they would not let her live to tell what she knew. Martha rounded a corner and nearly collided with a hay cart parked outside the livery stable. The driver was nowhere to be seen, probably inside getting drunk or gambling away his wages. Without thinking, she climbed up the side of the cart and burrowed deep into the sweet-smelling hay, pulling it over herself until she was completely concealed. She forced herself to breathe slowly, quietly, even as tears streamed down her face and her whole body shook with grief and terror. She heard boots on the wooden sidewalk, heavy and purposeful. She could not have gotten far, a voice growled. That was Thomas Garrett, the eldest of the three brothers. Find her. Search every building, every alley. She dies tonight. Martha pressed her hand over her mouth to stifle a sob. Her father was dead. The kindest man she had ever known, gunned down like a dog because he would not compromise his principles. She was 19 years old, had never been more than 20 miles from Opal in her entire life, and now she was utterly alone in the world. The footsteps passed by the cart, then returned. She held her breath, certain she had been discovered, but the men moved on. She lay perfectly still in the hay, listening to the sounds of the search continuing through the night. Doors slamming, horses whinnying, men cursing and shouting to one another. Hours passed. The hay was warm and scratchy against her skin, and she could feel pieces of it working their way into her hair and down the back of her dress. Her legs were cramping from being held in one position for so long, but she dared not move. The slightest sound could give away her hiding place. It must have been near midnight when she heard new footsteps approaching the cart. These were different from the others, slower and more measured. A man's voice spoke softly, almost too quiet to hear. "Easy there, boy, just checking the load before we head out." Martha's heart seized. The driver had returned. He would climb up to check the hay and find her, and then he would turn her over to the Garrett brothers for whatever reward they were offering. She tensed, preparing to run, though she knew it would be futile. The hay shifted above her, and suddenly cool night air touched her face. She looked up into the most startling pair of gray eyes she had ever seen. They belonged to a man in his mid-20s, with dark hair that fell to his collar, and several days' worth of stubble on his strong jaw. He wore a black hat pulled low, a worn leather vest over a dark shirt, and a gun belt slung low on his hips. For a long moment, they simply stared at each other. Then he did something she did not expect. He put a finger to his lips, signaling for silence, and carefully replaced the hay over her hiding spot. She heard him move around the cart, checking the wheels and speaking in low tones to his horse. Then his voice came again, louder this time, clearly meant for anyone who might be listening. "All secure. Think I will get some sleep before heading out at dawn." Martha lay perfectly still, hardly daring to believe what had just happened. The stranger had found her and had not given her away. She heard him settle himself somewhere near the cart, heard the creak of leather as he made himself comfortable. Minutes stretched into an hour, then 2. She must have dozed off from sheer exhaustion, because she woke with a start to the sound of approaching horses. Dawn was just beginning to lighten the sky, and through a small gap in the hay, she could see the first pink streaks of sunrise. "You there, with the cart?" That was Thomas Garrett's voice again. "You see a girl running through here last night, dark hair, slim, about 19 years old." The stranger's voice was calm, almost lazy. "Been sleeping since I got in around 10, did not see anyone. We need to search your cart." "That's so." There was a dangerous edge to the stranger's tone now. "You got a warrant, do not need a warrant in Opal. The Garrett brothers run this town." "That right? Well, I am just passing through, friend, and this here is my property. You want to search it, you better have legal cause." Martha could hear the tension in the silence that followed. She pressed herself deeper into the hay, expecting at any moment to be dragged out and shot. Instead, she heard the distinctive sound of a gun being cocked. "Now, I am a reasonable man," the stranger said, his voice still calm but hard as iron. "But I have had a long night and I am not in the mood for trouble. You and your boys can ride on, or we can settle this right here. Your choice." Another long silence. Then Thomas Garrett laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You are making a mistake, stranger. Nobody crosses the Garretts in Opal." "I will take my chances. Now move along." She heard the horses wheeling away, heard Thomas Garrett call back, "We will be watching the roads." She cannot hide forever. The stranger said nothing. Martha waited until the sound of hoofbeats had faded into the distance before daring to breathe normally again. The sun was fully up now, and she could hear the town beginning to wake around them. Doors opening, voices calling out morning greetings, the blacksmith stoking his forge. "We need to move," the stranger said quietly, speaking to her though he was not looking at the cart. "They will be back and they will bring more men. When I start driving, stay hidden and stay quiet. Understand?" "Yes," Martha whispered, her voice hoarse from crying and fear. She felt the cart lurch as he climbed up onto the driver's seat. The horse started forward, and they began to move through the streets of Opal. Martha could hear people calling out to each other, going about their morning business as if her entire world had not just ended. The cart turned, and she heard the rattle of wheels on the wooden bridge that crossed Sage Creek at the edge of town. They traveled for what felt like hours. The sun climbed higher, and the hay became uncomfortably warm. Martha's mouth was dry, and every muscle in her body ached from being held in the cramped position, but she did not dare complain or even move much. The stranger had saved her life twice already, and she would not repay that kindness by putting him in danger. Finally, when the sun was high overhead, the cart pulled to a stop. "We are far enough out now," the stranger said. "You can come out if you want to stretch." Martha pushed the hay aside and sat up, blinking in the bright sunlight. They were in the middle of open rangeland, with mountains rising purple in the distance. The road behind them was empty as far as she could see. She climbed down from the cart on shaking legs, and nearly fell when her cramped muscles refused to support her properly. The stranger caught her elbow, steadying her. Up close, she could see that his eyes were not just gray but had flecks of blue in them, and there was a scar running along his jaw that she had not noticed in the darkness. He was tall, over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and the lean, hard build of a man who lived by his strength and his wits. "Thank you," Martha managed to say. "You saved my life." He released her arm and took a step back, as if touching her made him uncomfortable. Those men were looking to kill you. It was not a question, but she nodded anyway. They murdered my father last night. He was the preacher in Opal. They wanted him to lie for them, and when he would not, they shot him. I saw it happen. Something flickered across the stranger's face, an emotion she could not quite read. I am sorry for your loss. Who are you? Martha asked. Why did you help me? He hesitated, then seemed to come to a decision. Name is Cole Winchester, and I helped you because those Garrett brothers are the kind of men who give outlaws a bad name. You are an outlaw. Martha took an involuntary step backward. Cole's mouth quirked in what might have been a smile. Yes, madam, wanted in 3 territories for robbery and rustling, but I have never killed a man who did not draw on me first, and I do not hold with murdering preachers or hunting down young women. He studied her face. What is your name? Martha Newman. Well, Miss Newman, we have a problem. Those Garrett brothers are going to be watching every road out of Opal, and they have friends throughout the territory. You cannot go back, and traveling alone out here will get you killed just as sure as they would have. What should I do? The reality of her situation was beginning to sink in. She had no money, no supplies, nowhere to go. Her only living relatives were an aunt and uncle in Denver, but that was hundreds of miles away through dangerous country. Cole Winchester looked at her for a long moment, those gray eyes assessing. I am headed north into Montana. There is a settlement up there where a woman can get honest work and where the Garretts have no influence. I will take you that far if you are willing to travel with an outlaw. Martha considered her options. She could refuse and try to make her own way, in which case she would likely be dead within a week. Or she could trust this dangerous stranger who had already protected her when he had no reason to do so. I will go with you, she said. But I should tell you I have no money to pay you for your trouble. Did not ask for any. He walked to the back of the cart and pulled out a canteen. Drink. We have a long way to go, and I need you to stay strong. She took the canteen gratefully and drank deeply. The water was warm but tasted better than anything she had ever had. When she handed it back, their fingers brushed, and she felt a strange jolt run through her. Cole looked away quickly, as if he had felt it too. They traveled through the afternoon, with Martha sitting beside Cole on the driver's seat now. He did not talk much, but his silence was not unfriendly. He pointed out landmarks occasionally, showed her how to watch for signs of other travelers on the road. When the sun began to sink toward the mountains, he pulled the cart off the main trail and into a sheltered hollow near a stream. We will camp here tonight, he said. I will make a fire and cook some supper. You can wash up in the stream if you want. Martha made her way to the water's edge while Cole set up camp. She splashed cool water on her face and tried to work the hay out of her hair with her fingers. When she looked at her reflection in the stream, she hardly recognized herself. Her eyes were red from crying, her face streaked with dirt, her dress torn and stained. She looked like a vagrant, not the respectable preacher's daughter she had been just yesterday. Yesterday. Had it really been only one day since her father's murder? It felt like a lifetime ago. She walked back to the camp to find Cole building a fire and setting up a small camp pot to cook beans. He had unsaddled his horse, a big roan gelding with intelligent eyes, and the animal was now grazing peacefully nearby. Cole worked with efficient, practiced movements, a man clearly used to living on the trail. Where did you learn to do all this? Martha asked, settling herself on a fallen log near the fire. Grew up doing it, Cole said. My family had a ranch in Texas. I learned to ride and rope and survive in rough country before I could read or write. What happened to your family? His jaw tightened. Raiders came through during the war. Comancheros, Mexican bandits, Confederate deserters, all mixed together. They killed my father and my older brother, burned the ranch house. My mother died of fever the next winter. I was 14. I am so sorry, Martha said softly. She knew something about sudden, violent loss now, long time ago. Cole did not look at her as he spoke. I drifted after that. Took work where I could find it. Cattle drives, breaking horses, guarding freight wagons. Then I fell in with some men who were not exactly law-abiding, and one thing led to another. Turned out I was good at the outlaw life. Too good, maybe. Do you regret it? He was quiet for a long moment, stirring the beans. Sometimes. But a man cannot change what he is, Miss Newman. The law does not forgive, and it does not forget. I made my choices, and now I live with them. They ate in silence as the stars came out overhead. The beans were simple but filling, and Martha realized she had not eaten since breakfast the previous day. After they finished, Cole banked the fire and spread out bedrolls on opposite sides of the small camp. "You should try to sleep," he said. "We will be riding hard tomorrow." Martha lay down on the bedroll, staring up at the vast expanse of stars. She could hear Cole moving around the camp, checking on the horse, making sure the fire was properly contained. Then she heard him settle onto his own bedroll. "Mr. Winchester," she said into the darkness. "Cole." "Just Cole." "Cole, then. Why did you really help me? You could have turned me in and probably collected a reward." She heard him shift, and when he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. "I saw my mother running from those raiders, saw her trying to hide my little sister. I was too young and too scared to help them. I have been seeing that image in my head for 10 years now. When I found you in that hay cart, you looked the same way my mother did that day, terrified and desperate and trying so hard to be brave." He paused. "I guess I figured this was my chance to do what I should have done back then." Tears stung Martha's eyes. "What happened to your sister?" She lived. Got taken in by a family in San Antonio. Married a shopkeeper, has 3 children now. She does not want anything to do with me, and I do not blame her. Better for her if people forget we are related. I am sure that is not true. It is. I am an outlaw, Miss Newman. Men like me do not get happy endings. We get bullets in the back or a rope around our necks. Best I can do is try to make sure some good people get their happy endings instead." Martha did not know what to say to that, so she said nothing. She lay awake for a long time, listening to the sounds of the night and thinking about this strange, complicated man who had saved her life. An outlaw with a code of honor. A man running from his past who still tried to do right when he could. She must have fallen asleep eventually, because she woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Cole saddling his horse. The sun was just rising, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. "Morning," Cole said when he saw her stirring. "We should eat and move out. I want to put as many miles as possible between us and Opal." They made quick work of a simple breakfast of hardtack and coffee, then continued north. The landscape began to change as they traveled, becoming more rugged and mountainous. Cole kept them off the main roads, following trails that only someone familiar with the country would know. On the 3rd day of travel, they saw riders in the distance. Cole immediately turned the cart off the trail and into a dense stand of trees. "Stay quiet," he murmured. They waited, hardly breathing, as 5 men rode past on the trail below. Martha caught a glimpse of one of them and felt her blood run cold. It was James Garrett, Thomas's younger brother. "They are spreading out," Cole said once the riders were out of sight. "Looking for you throughout the territory. We need to change our approach." "What do you mean? We cannot keep traveling like this." "A man alone with a cart draws attention, especially when people are looking for a missing woman. We need a different story." He looked at her appraisingly. "Can you play a part?" "What kind of part?" "We are married. Newlyweds heading to Montana to start a homestead." "I am a farmer looking for land. You are my bride. That way, no one will question why we are traveling together. Martha felt her cheeks flush. People will want to see a marriage certificate. Most people will not ask. And if they do, we will say we were married by a traveling preacher and have not had time to register it properly yet. Cole's expression was serious. I know it is not ideal, Miss Newman, but it is the best way to keep you safe. He was right, and she knew it. All right. But if we are supposed to be married, you should probably call me Martha. Martha, then. The way he said her name made something flutter in her chest. And you should call me Cole. They continued their journey as husband and wife. It felt strange at first, unnatural, but Cole played the part convincingly. When they stopped at a small trading post to buy supplies, he introduced her as his wife and kept a protective hand on the small of her back. The trader, a grizzled old man with one eye, congratulated them and offered them advice about good land to the north. That night, they camped near a river, and Martha washed her dress in the cold water while Cole caught fish for supper. She hung the dress over a tree branch to dry and wrapped herself in a blanket while she waited. When she returned to the fire, Cole had 3 fat trout sizzling in a pan. "You are full of surprises," Martha said. "Outlaw, protector, and now fisherman." Cole actually smiled at that, a real smile that transformed his face and made him look younger. "Man picks up all kinds of skills when he lives the way I have." "Tell me more about Montana," Martha said as they ate. "What is this settlement you mentioned? Place called Elkhorn." "Started as a mining camp but settled into a regular town. They have a school, a church, a few stores. It is far enough from anywhere that people do not ask too many questions about where folks come from." He looked at her across the fire. "You could teach, maybe. I know you must have had some education, being a preacher's daughter." "My father taught me to read and write, and he had a good library. I can do figures and I know some Latin and Greek." She poked at the fire with a stick. "I suppose teaching is better than most options available to a woman alone." "You will not be alone," Cole said, then seemed to realize how that sounded. "I mean, I will make sure you are settled and safe before I move on." "Where will you go?" he shrugged. "Wherever the law is not. Maybe Canada, maybe Mexico, depends on how hot things get." The thought of Cole leaving, of facing this new life without him, made Martha feel unexpectedly sad. She had only known him for a few days, but he had become her anchor in a world that had been turned upside down. "I wish things were different," she said quietly. "How so?" "I wish you were not an outlaw. I wish my father had not been killed. I wish we really were just newlyweds heading to Montana to start a farm." She looked up at him, meeting those gray eyes across the fire. "I wish this pretend life could be real." Cole looked away, his jaw working. "Do not wish for that, Martha. I am not the kind of man who gets to have a real life. The things I have done, the choices I have made, they do not lead to homesteads and families. They lead to graves and prison cells. But what if you stopped? What if you just stayed in Montana and started over?" "It does not work that way. There are wanted posters with my name and face on them. Someone would recognize me eventually, and then it would all come crashing down." He stood abruptly. "You should get some sleep. Tomorrow will be another long day." Martha wanted to argue, wanted to tell him that people could change, that he deserved a second chance. But she could see from the set of his shoulders that the conversation was over. She settled into her bedroll, but sleep was a long time coming. The next morning, they forded a wide river and entered Montana territory. The landscape was breathtaking, with towering mountains and vast meadows filled with wildflowers. Martha found herself imagining what it would be like to build a life here, to wake up every morning to these views. They reached a small town called Silver Creek in the afternoon. It was barely more than a dozen buildings clustered around a dirt main street, but there was a general store and a saloon. Cole pulled the cart up to the store and helped Martha down. "We need more supplies," he said. "And I want to ask about the road ahead." Inside the store, a plump woman with gray hair greeted them warmly. "Welcome, welcome. You must be the newlyweds old Pete told us about. Word travels fast out here." Martha glanced at Cole, who nodded slightly. "Yes, madam," Martha said. "We are heading to Elkhorn." "Oh, lovely. That is where my sister lives. Fine town, Elkhorn. You picked a good place to settle." The woman, who introduced herself as Mrs. Henderson, bustled around gathering supplies. "How long have you two been married?" "Just a few weeks," Cole said smoothly. "Married back in Wyoming and decided to make a fresh start up north." "How romantic. Young love is such a beautiful thing." Mrs. Henderson beamed at them. "You know, we have a dance here tomorrow night. Nothing fancy, just the town getting together for some music and fun. You should stay and join us." Martha was about to decline when Cole said, "That sounds nice. We could use a night to rest before the final push to Elkhorn." After they left the store, Martha asked, "Why did you agree to stay? I thought you wanted to keep moving." "I have been thinking about what you said," Cole replied, "about wishing things were different, and I realized something. For the past few days, pretending to be your husband, pretending to be a normal man heading to start a normal life, I have been happier than I have been in years." He stopped the cart and turned to face her. "I know it is just pretend. I know it cannot be real. But maybe, just for one night, we could forget about outlaws and wanted posters and murdered preachers. Maybe we could just be Cole and Martha, going to a dance like regular folks." Martha's heart was pounding. "I would like that." They made camp on the outskirts of town and spent the rest of the day doing simple chores. Cole checked the cart's wheels and reshod his horse, while Martha washed their clothes in a nearby stream and mended a tear in her dress. It felt domestic and comfortable, like they really were a married couple. That evening, as they sat by the fire, Cole pulled something from his saddlebag. It was a small book, worn and dog-eared. "I am not much for reading these days, but I thought you might like this." "Picked it up at a trading post a few months back." Martha took the book carefully. It was a collection of poems by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. "Thank you," she said, touched by the gesture. "This is wonderful." "Used to see my mother reading poetry by the fire," Cole said. "Reminded me of her when I saw it." Martha opened the book and began to read aloud, her voice soft in the gathering darkness. Cole listened, his eyes on the fire, but she could tell he was hearing every word. When she finished the first poem, he asked her to read another, and then another. Finally, Martha closed the book. "Your mother must have been a remarkable woman." She was. Tough as nails when she needed to be, but gentle too. She could calm a spooked horse or nurse a sick calf through the night, and she loved my father with everything she had. Cole's voice was wistful. "I used to wonder what that was like, loving someone so much you would give up everything for them." "Have you ever been in love?" Martha asked before she could stop herself. Cole was quiet for so long she thought he would not answer. Then he said, "I thought I was once. I was 18, working on a ranch in New Mexico. The owner's daughter took a shine to me. Pretty girl, sweet. We talked about getting married." He paused. "Then I got into trouble, had to leave in the middle of the night, never saw her again. Heard later she married the son of a neighboring rancher. Probably better off without me. You still think about her, sometimes. But mostly I think about what might have been, not her specifically." He looked at Martha then, really looked at her, and there was something in his eyes that made her breath catch. "Lately, I have been thinking about it more." The next day was the dance. Martha had only her one dress, but she washed it carefully and did her best to arrange her hair in a more flattering style. She had no mirror, so she had to judge by touch, but when she emerged from behind the trees where she had been preparing, Cole's expression told her she looked acceptable. "You look beautiful," he said, and the sincerity in his voice made her blush. "You cleaned up well yourself," she replied. Cole had shaved and changed into a clean shirt, and without the trail dust and stubble, he was remarkably handsome. The dance was held in a barn at the edge of town. Someone had strung lanterns from the rafters, and a group of musicians with a fiddle, a guitar, and a harmonica were playing lively tunes. The townspeople were friendly and welcoming, eager to meet the newcomers. Cole proved to be a surprisingly good dancer. He led Martha through reels and waltzes with confidence, his hand warm and steady at her waist. She found herself laughing, really laughing for the first time since her father's death. "You are full of surprises," she told him as they spun across the floor. "Where did an outlaw learn to dance?" "My mother taught me," Cole said. "She said every gentleman should know how to dance, even if he was a rancher's son." She was right. They danced until Martha's feet ached and her face hurt from smiling. Between dances, they stood at the edge of the barn, drinking punch and watching the other couples. Mrs. Henderson came over at one point to introduce them to her husband and to tell them again how lovely they looked together. "You can see the love just radiating from them," Mrs. Henderson said to her husband. "Remember when we were that young and starry-eyed?" After she left, Martha and Cole looked at each other. "We are good actors," Martha said, trying to make light of it. "Are we acting?" Cole asked quietly. Before Martha could answer, the musicians struck up a slow waltz. Cole extended his hand. "One more dance." She took his hand and let him lead her back onto the floor. This dance was different from the others. They moved closer together, and Martha could feel the warmth of his body, could smell the faint scent of soap and leather. His hand at her waist seemed to burn through the fabric of her dress. "Martha," Cole said, his voice rough, "I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "This, tonight, being with you like this, it is not pretend for me anymore. Maybe it never was." He looked down at her, his gray eyes intense. "I know I have no right to feel this way. I know I am the last man you should care about. But I cannot keep pretending that you are just some woman I am helping. You have gotten under my skin, Martha Newman." Martha's heart was racing. "You have gotten under mine, too." The music swirled around them, but Martha was barely aware of it. All she could focus on was Cole, on the way he was looking at her like she was something precious and fragile. When the dance ended, they walked outside into the cool night air. They stood in the shadows behind the barn, neither quite willing to break the spell that had fallen over them. Cole reached out and gently tucked a strand of hair behind Martha's ear. "I want to kiss you," he said. "But if I do, I do not think I will be able to let you go." "Then do not let me go," Martha whispered. He kissed her then, gentle at first and then deeper, his arms coming around her and pulling her close. Martha had never been kissed before, had never felt anything like the fire that raced through her veins at his touch. She wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him back with all the emotion that had been building inside her. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "Martha," Cole said, resting his forehead against hers, "I cannot give you the life you deserve. I am a wanted man. If you stay with me, you will always be looking over your shoulder, always wondering when the law will catch up." "I do not care," Martha said fiercely. "My old life is gone. My father is dead, and I can never go back to Opal. Maybe this is my chance to choose a new life, one that I want instead of one that was chosen for me. You want a life with an outlaw. I want a life with you. I do not care what you were. I care about who you are now." She cupped his face in her hands. "You are a good man, Cole Winchester. You saved my life when you did not have to. You protected me, cared for me, treated me with respect and kindness. That is the man I see. That is the man I am falling in love with." Cole closed his eyes as if her words were painful to hear. "I do not deserve you. That is not for you to decide." I am 19 years old and I am making my own choice. I choose you." He kissed her again, and this time there was a desperation in it, like a drowning man reaching for air. When they returned to the dance, they did not stay long. They walked back to their camp hand in hand, not speaking but not needing to. Everything had changed between them at the camp. Cole built up the fire and they sat close together on a log, Martha's head resting on his shoulder. "What do we do now?" she asked. "We go to Elkhorn like we planned. But we do not pretend anymore, we make it real." Cole turned to look at her. "Martha Newman, will you marry me, for real this time?" "Yes," Martha said without hesitation. "Yes, I will marry you." They sat by the fire long into the night, making plans and dreaming about the future. Cole talked about finding a piece of land outside Elkhorn, building a cabin, maybe raising some horses. Martha talked about teaching and creating a home they could be proud of. "What about your past?" Martha asked. "What if someone recognizes you?" "I will take that risk. Maybe out here, far enough from everywhere, we can make it work. And if the law does come, at least I will have had some time being happy." He kissed the top of her head. "That is more than most outlaws get." They left Silver Creek the next morning and continued north. The landscape grew even more beautiful as they traveled, with crystal-clear lakes and forests of pine and aspen. Cole pointed out wildlife, taught Martha how to read the sky for signs of weather, and told her stories about his years on the trail. One afternoon they crested a hill and saw Elkhorn spread out in the valley below. It was larger than Martha had expected, with a proper main street lined with buildings, a white church with a steeple, and houses scattered on the surrounding hillsides. "There it is," Cole said. "Our new home, if you want it to be." "I want it," Martha said firmly. They rode into town as the sun was setting, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. People looked up as they passed, curious but not unfriendly. Cole stopped the cart in front of a building with a sign that read Elkhorn General Store. A tall man with a handlebar mustache came out to greet them. "Welcome to Elkhorn. Name is Samuel Peterson. I run the store and serve as unofficial mayor of this town." Cole helped Martha down from the cart. "Cole Winchester, and this is my fiancée, Martha Newman. We are looking to settle in the area." "Well, you have come to the right place. Elkhorn is always happy to have hard-working folks join us." Peterson shook Cole's hand. "What line of work are you in?" "I am good with horses. Thought I might start a training and breeding business if there is a need for it." "Always a need for good horse handlers out here. There is a piece of land about 3 miles out of town, up Willow Creek Way, that might suit you. Owner died last winter and his heirs back east do not want it. You could probably get it for a fair price." They spent the next few days getting to know Elkhorn and its people. The town was a mix of miners, ranchers, farmers, and merchants, all trying to build lives in the wilderness. Martha met the schoolteacher, a stern but kind woman named Miss Abigail Carter, who was looking for an assistant to help with the growing number of children in town. Cole met with the land agent and negotiated a price for the property Peterson had mentioned. It was beautiful land, with a meadow for grazing, a stream running through it, and a small cabin that needed work but was structurally sound. "We can make this work," Cole said as they stood in the cabin, looking at the dirt floor and the gaps in the walls that would need chinking. "It will take effort, but we can build something good here." "I know we can," Martha said. They were married 2 weeks later in the church on the hill. The whole town turned out for the wedding, eager to celebrate with their newest residents. Martha wore a simple blue dress that Mrs. Peterson had helped her sew, and Cole wore his best clothes and a nervous expression that made Martha want to laugh and cry at the same time. The preacher, Reverend Thomas Clark, was a young man with an earnest face. He spoke about love and commitment and building a life together. When he asked Cole if he took Martha to be his wife, Cole's voice was strong and clear. "I do." And when he asked Martha the same question, she looked into Cole's eyes and said, "I do," with her whole heart. The kiss they shared as husband and wife was sweet and full of promise. The townspeople cheered and someone started playing a fiddle. The celebration moved to the town hall, where there was food and dancing and laughter. Later that night, Cole and Martha returned to their cabin. Cole had spent the previous week making improvements, chinking the walls and laying a wooden floor and building a proper bed frame. He had even picked wildflowers and put them in a jar on the rough table he had made. "Welcome home, Mrs. Winchester," Cole said, sweeping her up in his arms and carrying her over the threshold. Martha laughed and kissed him. "I like the sound of that, Mrs. Winchester." That night they truly became husband and wife in every sense. Cole was gentle and patient, and Martha discovered that the passion she felt for him was returned in full measure. They fell asleep in each other's arms, and Martha thought she had never been happier. The next months were busy ones. Cole worked on improving the property, building a barn and fences and breaking horses for the local ranchers. He had a gift for it, a gentle way with even the wildest animals, and word spread quickly about his skills. Soon he had more work than he could handle. Martha started helping at the school 3 days a week, teaching the younger children their letters and numbers. The rest of the time, she worked on making the cabin into a real home. She sewed curtains for the windows, planted a garden, and learned to cook meals that did not come from a can. In the evenings, Cole would come home tired and dusty from working with the horses, and Martha would have dinner waiting. They would eat together and talk about their days, and then sit by the fire reading or just enjoying each other's company. Sometimes Cole would pull out his harmonica and play while Martha sang old hymns her father had taught her. Life was not always easy. The winters in Montana were harsh, with snow piling up to the windows and temperatures that made every task a struggle. There were times when money was tight, and they had to make difficult choices about what to spend on and what to do without. But they faced every challenge together, and that made all the difference. One afternoon in early spring, nearly a year after they had arrived in Elkhorn, Cole came home to find Martha sitting at the table with a strange expression on her face. "What is wrong?" he asked immediately, always alert for danger. "Nothing is wrong," Martha said. "Actually, something is very right. Cole, I am with child." Cole stared at her for a long moment, then a slow smile spread across his face. He crossed the room and pulled her into his arms, spinning her around. "We are going to have a baby." "Yes," Martha laughed. "We are going to have a baby." That night, they lay in bed talking about the future. Cole rested his hand on Martha's still flat stomach, marveling at the life growing there. "I am going to be a father," he kept saying, as if he could not quite believe it. "You are going to be a wonderful father," Martha assured him. "I hope so. I want to give our child everything I did not have. Safety, security, a real home. You already are. Look at what we have built here, Cole. We have a home, we have friends, we have a community that accepts us. Our child will grow up surrounded by love." But even as she said it, Martha could see the worry in Cole's eyes. "What is it?" she asked. "I just keep thinking, what if my past catches up with us? What if someone recognizes me? I do not want our child growing up with an outlaw for a father. Then we make sure that never happens." "You are Cole Winchester, horse trainer and respected member of the Elkhorn community. Your past is behind you." Cole pulled her close. "I hope you are right." Summer came, and Martha's pregnancy became obvious. The women of Elkhorn rallied around her, offering advice and hand-me-down baby clothes and promises to help when the time came. Cole became even more protective. insisting that Martha not overdo it and treating her like she was made of glass. "I am pregnant, not dying," Martha told him with exasperation when he tried to carry her over a small puddle. "I just want to take care of you," Cole said. "You are. But you need to let me do things too. I am perfectly capable of walking across a puddle." Their baby was born on a crisp October morning. The labor was long and difficult, but when Martha finally held their son in her arms, she forgot all about the pain. He was perfect, with a shock of dark hair and his father's gray eyes. "He is beautiful," Cole said, his voice thick with emotion. He touched the baby's tiny hand, and the infant's fingers closed around his. "Hello, little one. I am your father." They named him Nehemiah Cole Winchester, after Martha's father and his own father. From the moment Nehemiah entered their lives, everything changed. Cole proved to be a devoted father, changing diapers and walking the floor with the baby at night when he was fussy. Martha would wake to find Cole sitting in the rocking chair he had built, holding their son and singing softly to him. As Nehemiah grew, he became the center of their world. He had his father's adventurous spirit and his mother's quick mind. By the time he was 2, he was toddling around the property, following Cole everywhere and trying to help with the horses. Life in Elkhorn had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Cole's horse training business was thriving, and Martha had been promoted to head teacher at the school when Miss Carter retired. They had added on to the cabin, building 2 more rooms and a proper front porch. They had friends, a place in the community, and a future that looked bright. It was almost too good to be true. The day everything changed started like any other. Cole had gone into town to pick up supplies, taking Nehemiah with him to give Martha a few hours of quiet to grade papers. She was sitting at the kitchen table, working through a stack of arithmetic assignments when she heard horses approaching. Looking out the window, Martha saw 3 men riding up to the cabin. They were not locals. She could tell that immediately. They had the hard, weathered look of men who lived by the gun, and their horses were tired, like they had been ridden a long way. Martha's heart began to pound. She set down her papers and went to the door but did not open it. "Can I help you?" she called through the wood. "We are looking for a man named Cole Winchester," one of the riders said. "Heard he lives out this way." "Who is asking?" "Name is Jack Reeves. I am a bounty hunter. Got a warrant for Winchester's arrest." Martha felt the blood drain from her face. This was the nightmare they had been living with for 3 years, the fear that had never quite gone away no matter how peaceful their life had become. "There is no one here by that name," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Reeves laughed. "That's so. Because I have it on good authority that Cole Winchester is living in Elkhorn under his real name, running a horse training business. Got a wife and a kid too, from what I hear." Martha did not answer. "Look, madam, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. You tell me where Winchester is and we will take him peaceful. You do not, and we will track him down anyway, and it might get messy. You do not want your kid to see his daddy getting shot, do you?" "Get off my land," Martha said, her voice shaking with anger and fear. "Suit yourself. But we will be back, and when we find Winchester, he is going to hang for what he did." The men rode off, and Martha immediately ran to the barn. She saddled Cole's fastest horse and rode hell for leather into town, praying she would get there before the bounty hunters did. She found Cole and Nehemiah at the general store. Cole took one look at her face and knew something was terribly wrong. "Take Nehemiah to Mrs. Peterson," he said quietly. "Now." Martha did as he asked, leaving their confused son with the storekeeper's wife. When she came back outside, Cole was waiting. "What happened?" "Bounty hunters, 3 of them. They came to the cabin looking for you. They know who you are, Cole. They have a warrant." Cole's face went pale. "Did they hurt you?" "No, but they said they will be back." They are going to track you down and take you in. Martha grabbed his arm. What do we do? Cole looked around the street, thinking fast. We do not run. If I run, they will chase me, and you and Nehemiah will get caught in the crossfire. If I turn myself in, maybe I can convince them to let me go back to Wyoming peacefully, stand trial properly. No, they will hang you, maybe. Maybe not. I have been clean for 3 years. No robberies, no rustling, nothing. I am a changed man. Maybe that will count for something. You cannot do this. We will run. We will go to Canada, start over somewhere else. Cole cupped her face in his hands. Martha, I am tired of running. I am tired of looking over my shoulder, wondering when this day would come. I want our son to grow up with his father, but I want him to grow up with a father he can be proud of. That means facing what I did and accepting the consequences. I cannot lose you, Martha said, tears streaming down her face. You will not lose me. I promise you, I will find a way back to you and Nehemiah, but I have to do this right. Before Martha could argue further, the bounty hunters rode into town. Jack Reeves spotted Cole immediately and called out, Cole Winchester. You are under arrest for robbery and rustling in the Wyoming territory. Cole stepped forward, his hands raised. I am not armed. I will come peacefully. But I want your word that my wife and son will not be harmed. Reeves studied him for a moment, then nodded. You come along quiet and they will be left alone. You have my word. The townspeople had gathered, watching in shock as their respected neighbor was put in irons. Samuel Peterson stepped forward. There must be some mistake. Cole is a good man. He has lived here for 3 years and never caused a bit of trouble. He is also a wanted criminal, Reeves said. Whatever he has been doing here does not change what he did before. Cole looked at Martha. It is going to be all right, trust me. But as they led him away, Martha did not see how it could possibly be all right. The next weeks were a blur of activity. Martha hired a lawyer from Helena, a sharp young man named David Foster who believed in Cole's case. He traveled to Wyoming to research the charges against Cole and build a defense. What he found was interesting. The robberies Cole had been involved in had all targeted the Garrett brothers and their associates. The cattle rustling charges stemmed from Cole allegedly stealing back cattle that had been stolen from honest ranchers in the first place. It painted a picture not of a hardened criminal, but of a man who had been fighting against corrupt forces. The problem, Foster explained to Martha, is that vigilante justice is still illegal. Even if Cole was stealing from thieves, he broke the law doing it. But I think we can make a case for leniency, especially given his exemplary behavior over the past 3 years. The trial was held in Cheyenne. Martha made the long journey with Nehemiah, determined to be there for Cole. She sat in the courtroom every day, watching as the prosecution laid out the charges and the defense countered with character witnesses and evidence of Cole's rehabilitation. The case drew a lot of attention. Newspapers ran stories about the reformed outlaw and public opinion was divided. Some thought Cole should hang for his crimes. Others believed he deserved a second chance. On the witness stand, Cole was honest about what he had done. I made bad choices, he said. I let anger and grief turn me into someone I am not proud of. I stole, and I will not pretend otherwise. But I never killed anyone who did not draw on me first, and I never hurt innocent people. Why should this court show you mercy? The prosecutor demanded. Because I have proven that I can change. I have built a good life in Montana. I have a wife and a son who need me. I am not asking you to forget what I did. I am asking you to look at who I am now and give me a chance to keep being that person. Martha testified about how Cole had saved her life, how he had protected her when he had no reason to. She talked about the community they had built in Elkhorn, about the respect Cole had earned from his neighbors. In the end, It came down to the judge. He was an older man with white hair and kind eyes, and he listened to everything carefully. When it was time to deliver his verdict, the courtroom was packed with spectators. "Cole Winchester, you have been found guilty of robbery and cattle rustling," the judge said. Martha's heart sank. But the judge continued. "However, the court recognizes that the circumstances of your crimes were unusual and that you have demonstrated genuine reformation. Therefore, I am sentencing you to 5 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 2 years if you continue to demonstrate good behavior." It was not the outcome they had hoped for, but it was better than hanging. Cole was taken away immediately to begin serving his sentence at the territorial prison in Laramie. Martha returned to Elkhorn with Nehemiah and tried to keep their lives together. She continued teaching, and she hired a ranch hand to help maintain the property and care for the horses. Every month, she wrote to Cole, long letters telling him about Nehemiah's growth and the happenings in town. Cole wrote back, shorter letters that spoke of his hope for the future and his determination to serve his time and get back to them as quickly as possible. 2 years passed slowly. Nehemiah started school and grew tall and strong. He missed his father terribly and asked constantly when Cole would come home. "Soon," Martha always told him. "Soon." Finally, the day came. Martha received a letter from David Foster saying that Cole had been granted parole and would be released the following week. She could hardly believe it was real. She and Nehemiah traveled to Laramie to meet Cole when he walked out of the prison gates. He looked thinner and older, with new lines around his eyes, but when he saw them, his face lit up with joy. Nehemiah ran to him, and Cole scooped him up in a fierce hug. "Look how big you have gotten," he said, his voice choked with emotion. Then Cole turned to Martha and they came together in an embrace that felt like coming home. "I missed you," he whispered against her hair, "every single day. I missed you too, but you are here now. You are really here." The journey back to Elkhorn was filled with talking and laughter and tears. Cole could not stop touching them, as if he needed to constantly reassure himself that they were real. When they arrived home, the whole town turned out to welcome him back. There was a celebration at the town hall, with food and music and speeches. Samuel Peterson stood up and said, "Cole Winchester made a mistake and he paid for it. Now it is time for us to welcome him back as the good man and neighbor we know him to be." Life slowly returned to normal, though it was a new normal. Cole had to report to the marshal once a month as part of his parole, but otherwise he was free to resume his life. He went back to training horses, and Martha continued teaching. But Cole was different now. The time in prison had changed him, softened him in some ways and hardened him in others. He was more grateful for the small things, more present in every moment with Martha and Nehemiah. He had seen how close he had come to losing everything, and he was determined not to take a single day for granted. One evening, about 6 months after his release, Cole and Martha were sitting on the porch watching Nehemiah play in the yard. Martha had news to share, and she was not quite sure how Cole would take it. "I am pregnant again," she said quietly. Cole turned to her, his eyes widening. "Are you certain?" "Yes. The baby should come in the spring." Cole pulled her close and kissed her forehead. "That is wonderful news. I missed so much of Nehemiah's life while I was in prison. I want to be there for every moment with this child." Their daughter, Sarah Grace Winchester, was born in April. She had Martha's dark hair and Cole's gray eyes, and from the first moment she had her father wrapped around her tiny finger. Cole was besotted, spending hours just watching her sleep and marveling at her perfection. Nehemiah was thrilled to be a big brother and took his responsibilities seriously. He would help Martha with the baby. fetching diapers and singing to Sarah when she cried. As the children grew, the Winchester family became even more integrated into the Elkhorn community. Cole served on the town council and helped build a new school building. Martha started a lending library in their home. They were respected, valued members of society, and no one thought of Cole as an outlaw anymore. Years passed in a happy blur. Nehemiah grew into a responsible young man who shared his father's gift with horses. Sarah was bright and spirited, keeping everyone on their toes with her endless questions and boundless energy. When Nehemiah was 15 and Sarah was 10, Martha and Cole welcomed another son, Joshua Thomas Winchester. Cole was 40 by then, his dark hair showing threads of gray, but he was as devoted a father to Joshua as he had been to his older children. One night, when Joshua was about 2 years old, Cole and Martha sat on their porch watching the sunset paint the Montana sky in shades of orange and pink. The children were inside playing a game, their laughter drifting out through the open windows. "Do you ever think about how different our lives could have been?" Martha asked. "All the time," Cole admitted. "If I had not found you in that hay cart, if I had turned you in to the Garrett brothers, if I had kept running instead of settling here. Do you regret any of it, even the hard parts?" Cole considered the question. "I regret the time I spent in prison, the time I missed with you and Nehemiah, but I do not regret paying for my crimes. I needed to make that right." He took her hand. "And I do not regret a single moment I have spent with you. You saved me, Martha." "In every way a person can be saved. You saved me too," Martha said. "You gave me a life I never could have imagined, a life full of love and purpose and belonging." We saved each other then. They sat in comfortable silence, hands clasped, watching their world slowly darken into night. The air was filled with the sounds of early summer. Crickets chirping, the distant call of an owl, the soft rustle of wind through the pine trees. Inside, Nehemiah called out that it was time to put Joshua to bed. Cole and Martha rose and went inside to help. These were the moments Cole treasured most, the simple routines of family life that he had once thought would never be his. After the children were all tucked in, Cole and Martha retired to their own bedroom. It was a far cry from the rough cabin they had started with. Over the years, they had built a proper house, with 4 bedrooms and a kitchen with a real stove and a parlor with bookshelves lining the walls. As they prepared for bed, Martha said, "Nehemiah asked me today about what you did before we came to Elkhorn." Cole paused in the act of pulling off his boots. "What did you tell him?" "I told him the truth, that you made mistakes when you were young, but that you had paid for them and built a good life. I told him that everyone deserves a second chance to be better." "How did he take it?" "He said he already knew you were a good man and that nothing you did before he was born could change that." Martha smiled. "He is a wise young man, our son. He gets that from you. He gets it from both of us." Martha came to sit beside Cole on the bed. "We have built something good here, you and I, something worth being proud of. I am proud of it every day, proud of you, proud of our children, proud of the life we have made together." Cole kissed her gently. "I love you, Martha Winchester. I have loved you from the moment I found you hiding in that hay cart, though it took me a while to admit it. I love you too, Cole. I always will." They lay down together, and Martha nestled into Cole's arms the way she had done thousands of times before. Outside, the Montana night was vast and starry, full of possibility and promise. The years continued to pass, bringing both joys and challenges. There were harsh winters when the snow piled so high they could barely get to the barn. There were droughts that threatened the crops and the grazing land. There were illnesses and injuries and the inevitable hardships of frontier life. But through it all, Cole and Martha faced everything together. Their love, which had begun in danger and desperation, had grown into something deep and enduring. They were partners in the truest sense, supporting each other through good times and bad. Nehemiah eventually took over most of the horse training business, allowing Cole to slow down as he got older. He married a rancher's daughter from the next town over, a strong, capable woman named Elizabeth, and they gave Cole and Martha their first grandchildren. Sarah became a teacher like her mother, taking over the Elkhorn school when Martha finally retired. She married a lawyer who had moved to town to open a practice, and they built a house just down the road from her parents. Joshua, the youngest, decided to study medicine. He left Elkhorn to attend medical school back east, but he promised to return and open a practice in town once he had his degree. On their 25th wedding anniversary, the whole family gathered at the Winchester home for a celebration. The house was full of children and grandchildren, noise and laughter and love. Cole stood in the doorway watching it all, Martha at his side. "Look at what we built," he said softly. "Look at all of this." "It is pretty wonderful," Martha agreed. "I never thought I would have any of this. A family, a home, a place where I belonged. I thought men like me did not get happy endings. Good thing you were wrong." Cole pulled her close and kissed her, not caring that their children and grandchildren were watching and giggling. "Best decision I ever made was not turning you in that night. Second best was marrying you." "Only second best," Martha teased. "First best was falling in love with you. Marrying you was just making it official." As the sun set on their anniversary celebration, Cole and Martha stood on their porch once more, watching their family spread out across the yard. Children chased each other in games of tag while the adults talked and laughed. It was chaotic and messy and absolutely perfect. "You think your father would be proud of you?" Cole asked. It was a question he had asked before over the years. "I think he would," Martha said. "I think he would see that I have lived a good life, raised good children, loved a good man. What more could a father want for his daughter? Do you think my parents would be proud of me?" Martha turned to look at her husband. He was in his 50s now, his hair more gray than dark, his face lined with years of hard work and laughter and worry. But his eyes were the same gray she had first seen that night in the hay cart, and they still looked at her with the same love and devotion. "I know they would," she said firmly. "You took the worst thing that ever happened to you and turned it into something good. You built a life worth living, raised children who are making the world better, and loved your family with everything you have. Of course they would be proud." As the years went on, Cole and Martha grew old together. Their hair turned white, their steps grew slower, but their love never diminished. They still held hands when they walked, still kissed each other goodbye and hello, still sat on their porch in the evenings watching the sun set over the mountains. They saw all three of their children married and settled. They welcomed more grandchildren, then great-grandchildren. The Winchester name became synonymous with integrity and hard work in Elkhorn and the surrounding territory. Cole's past as an outlaw became almost legendary, a story that people told about redemption and second chances. Young men who had made mistakes would sometimes come to him for advice, and he would tell them the truth. That changing was hard, that paying for your crimes was harder, but that building a good life on the other side was worth every bit of struggle. On a warm summer evening, when Cole was 68 and Martha was 63, they sat on their porch as they had done so many times before. They had just hosted a gathering for their growing family and the house was finally quiet again. "I am tired," Cole admitted. "Good tired, but tired." "We have earned our rest," Martha said. "We have worked hard and loved hard and lived hard. No regrets, not a single one. You," Cole thought about the question, about the long and winding road that had brought him to this moment. He thought about the frightened young woman hiding in the hay cart, about the choice he had made to protect her instead of profiting from her fear. He thought about every moment since, the joys and the sorrows, the triumphs and the struggles. "No regrets," he said finally. "I would do it all again, exactly the same way if it meant ending up here with you." Martha leaned her head on his shoulder. "I love you, Cole Winchester." "I love you too, Martha Winchester. Always have, always will." They sat together as the stars came out. Two people who had found each other in the darkest of circumstances and built a life full of light. Around them, the Montana night was peaceful, the air sweet with the scent of pine and wildflowers. In the distance, they could hear an owl calling and the soft nicker of horses in the barn. This was home. This was family. This was love. And it was everything. As they grew even older, Cole and Martha remained active in the community as much as their aging bodies allowed. They attended church every Sunday, hosted family dinners, and served as the beloved grandparents that everyone in Elkhorn seemed to claim as their own. Joshua returned from medical school as promised and opened his practice in town. He never married, instead dedicating himself to caring for the people of Elkhorn and the surrounding ranches. He lived in a small house near his parents and took dinner with them several times a week. Nehemiah's horse breeding program had become famous throughout Montana and beyond. People came from as far away as California to buy Winchester horses, known for their intelligence, stamina, and gentle temperament. He credited everything he knew to his father, who had taught him not just how to train horses, but how to understand them. Sarah had 5 children of her own, all of whom adored their grandparents. They would run to Cole and Martha's house after school, begging for stories and cookies. Martha always had both ready, and Cole would sit in his chair by the fire, spinning tales of the old days that got more elaborate with each telling. On their 30th anniversary, the town of Elkhorn threw them a party at the town hall. It seemed like everyone in the territory came to celebrate with them. There were speeches and gifts, and a cake so large it took 3 people to carry it. Samuel Peterson, now in his 80s himself, stood up to make a toast. 30 years ago, a young couple came to Elkhorn looking for a fresh start. We did not know their whole story then, and we did not need to. What we saw was 2 people who were willing to work hard and contribute to our community. What we got was so much more. Cole and Martha Winchester have been pillars of this town, raising fine children, building successful businesses, and showing us all what it means to live with integrity and love. "To Cole and Martha," the crowd echoed. "To Cole and Martha." Cole stood, his hand clasped firmly in Martha's, and addressed the crowd. "When I found Martha hiding in a hay cart all those years ago, I was running from my past. I thought I was just helping someone in trouble, maybe earning a bit of redemption for myself. I had no idea I was finding my future. This town, this community, you all took a chance on us. You let us prove that people can change, that mistakes do not have to define us forever. You gave us a home and a family, and for that, we will be forever grateful." Martha added, "We came here as strangers, broken by our pasts. But you welcomed us and helped us heal. Our children grew up here, surrounded by good people who taught them how to be kind and strong and honest. Everything good in our lives comes from this place and the people in it. Thank you." There was not a dry eye in the room. As the years continued to pass, Cole's health began to decline. The hard years of his youth, combined with the physical toll of working with horses for decades, had worn down his body. He developed a persistent cough that worried Martha and Joshua, though Cole brushed off their concerns. "I am just getting old," he would say. "It happens to the best of us." But Martha noticed how he moved more slowly, how he had to rest more often. She noticed the way he would sometimes press his hand to his chest and close his eyes, breathing carefully until the pain passed. On a cold February night, when Cole was 72, he woke Martha in the middle of the night. "I do not feel right," he said, his voice strained. Martha lit a lamp and saw that his face was pale and covered in sweat. She immediately sent for Joshua, who came running through the snow in his nightshirt. Joshua examined his father, and his face was grave. "It is your heart, Pa. You need to rest. Take it easy." "I have been taking it easy," Cole protested weakly. "Not easy enough, apparently." Joshua mixed some medicine and made his father drink it. "You need to slow down even more. No more working with the horses, no more heavy lifting. You need to rest." Cole looked at Martha with frustration in his eyes. "I am not ready to be an invalid." "You are not an invalid," Martha said gently. "You are just getting older and you need to take care of yourself. We have had 33 wonderful years together. I want many more, and that means you need to follow Joshua's orders." Cole grumbled but agreed. He spent the next weeks mostly in his chair by the fire, reading or dozing or watching out the window at the snow. Martha stayed close, reading to him or just sitting quietly with her knitting. Spring came, and Cole improved somewhat with the warmer weather. He was able to walk around the property, though he tired easily. He spent his time teaching his grandsons the finer points of horsemanship, passing on knowledge he had accumulated over a lifetime. On a beautiful May afternoon, Cole and Martha sat on their porch, bundled in blankets despite the warm sun. They watched Nehemiah working with a young stallion in the corral, the same way Cole had done for so many years. "He is good," Cole said with pride. "Better than I ever was." "He learned from the best," Martha replied. "Martha, I need to tell you something." Cole took her hand, his grip weaker than it used to be but still warm and familiar. "I am not afraid of dying. I have lived a good life, a full life. I have loved and been loved. I have seen my children grow up strong and good. I have grandchildren and great-grandchildren who will carry on after I am gone. If my time comes tomorrow or 10 years from now, I will die a happy man." "Please do not talk like that," Martha said, tears welling in her eyes. "I am not being morbid, sweetheart. I am being grateful. But I need you to know that when my time does come, you should not mourn too long. You should keep living, keep loving, keep being the light you have always been." "Cole Winchester, you stop that right now. You are not dying anytime soon. We have more years ahead of us, and we are going to enjoy every single one of them." Cole smiled. "Yes, madam, whatever you say." And they did have more years, 5 of them in fact. Years filled with quiet contentment and the joy of watching their family continue to grow and flourish. Cole's health remained fragile, but he managed to stay active in small ways, always surrounded by the love of his family. He lived to see Nehemiah's youngest daughter married, to hold his first great-great-grandchild, to celebrate his and Martha's 38th anniversary. He lived to see Sarah elected to the school board, and Joshua honored by the Territorial Medical Association for his service to frontier communities. When the end finally came, it was peaceful. Cole had spent the day sitting in his favorite chair, surrounded by his children and grandchildren. As evening fell, he looked at Martha, who sat beside him holding his hand. "It has been a good life," he said softly. "The best life," Martha agreed, tears streaming down her face. "I love you. Have I told you that today?" "Yes, but I never tire of hearing it." "I love you, Martha. Thank you for saying yes all those years ago. Thank you for building this life with me. Thank you for finding me in that hay cart. Thank you for protecting me. Thank you for loving me." Martha kissed his forehead. "I love you too, Cole, forever." Cole smiled, squeezed her hand one last time, and closed his eyes. He passed quietly, surrounded by love, just as he had lived. The funeral was one of the largest Elkhorn had ever seen. People came from all over the territory to pay their respects to the man who had become a legend in his own time. Not because he had been an outlaw, but because he had been a good man who had proved that redemption was possible. That change was real, that love could conquer even the darkest past. Martha grieved deeply for her husband, but she did as he had asked. She continued to live, to love, to be present for her family. She moved into town to be closer to Sarah and Joshua, and her house became a gathering place for the family, full of warmth and memories. She lived another 8 years, long enough to see the turn of the century, long enough to see Montana become a state, long enough to know that the legacy she and Cole had built would endure. She told stories about Cole to anyone who would listen, keeping his memory alive and vibrant. On a spring morning in 1908, Martha passed away peacefully in her sleep at the age of 83. She was buried next to Cole on a hillside overlooking their property, with a view of the mountains they had both loved. The gravestone was simple but eloquent. Cole Winchester, 1854–1927, Martha Newman Winchester, 1860–1908, beloved husband and wife, parents, grandparents. Their love story began in a hay cart and ended in heaven together forever. The family they had created continued to grow and prosper. The Winchester name remained respected throughout Montana, and the story of how Cole and Martha had met became family legend, told and retold to each new generation. Their great-great-grandchildren would visit the old homestead, now preserved as a historic site, and hear about the outlaw cowboy who had found a preacher's daughter hiding in a hay cart, who had stood guard over her all night protecting her from those who would do her harm, and who had fallen in love with her along the way. It was a story about second chances and redemption, about how love can grow in the most unlikely circumstances, about how two broken people can come together and build something beautiful and lasting. It was a story about the Wild West, about danger and adventure and survival. But more than that, it was a love story, pure and simple, and it was true, every word of it.